Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode number 350 of the Embodied podcast. I am your host, Elizabeth Tialto, and today we are getting into the meaning of embodied healing and self-liberation. I wanted to record this episode because embodied healing and self-liberation are terms that I use to describe my work all the time. And sometimes people ask me what they mean specifically or where they came from. So I want to really pull that apart, put it back together, give you all the context, share some of the nuances with you, and as well to acknowledge that I didn't necessarily make up these terms. When I started using them, I didn't actually realize they were used by other people, but no one has actually coined them. So they're definitely up for interpretation by the various people who use them. So I wanted to give you my personal interpretation and application of them in this episode and in my body of work. And before I dive into today's episode, I want to let anyone listening in real time know that we are all up in the middle of the I Shine, You Shine challenge right now. And you can still sign up. You can still join us. Rather, we're all up in the middle of signups. The challenge doesn't actually start till June 11th. I'm literally so excited about it. And I've been planning it and putting it together for so many weeks. I've been all up in the middle of it for like a month and a half now, but the challenge doesn't actually officially kick off until this Friday, June 11th. So let me get a grip on myself here for a second. And I'll say a little bit more about the challenge later on in the episode, but just to give you a brief description now, it is a free 11-day embodiment challenge. And in it, I'm going to help you get your shine back. That's our theme. And we're going to do that through healing and liberating embodiment practices, dedicated community space, a one-of-a-kind summer solstice ceremony, and the biggest giveaway I have ever put together. So if you have not already signed up for IShineYouShine, go to untameyoursself.com/IShineYouShine -621. And you is spelled out there. So it's I shine, the word you, YOU, shine, and then -621. After the amount of time that we've all spent in a global pandemic, navigating numerous cultural revolutions, volatile elections, and more, we definitely need some healing and recovery time. And that's what I Shine You Shine is going to be from all of us, for all of us, from June 11th to June 21st. So I'm super, super excited for that. And I can't wait to see everyone who joins us in there and guide you through that experience. So let's get into the episode today. Just a reminder for anyone watching on YouTube, you might see me reading my notes here. I always have notes to keep myself on track. For those of you listening, you are spared from having to see me read and scroll through my notes from time to time. But the first thing I wanted to talk about was embodied healing. Embodied healing is healing that goes beyond mental processing alone and integrates the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of our individual and collective consciousness. As individuals, when we do our own personal embodied healing work, we are automatically contributing to collective healing as we're all energetically connected in this universe. So our personal work is valuable and important, but we don't exist in a vacuum. So we can't only focus on our own stuff without paying attention to what's going on in the collective if we really hope to contribute to healing on a larger scale. And here's the thing, not everyone hopes to do that. Some people are fine just staying self-centered and self-focused. But if you're here with me and you're listening to this podcast, my guess is you're not that kind of person because we are really about collective and community healing and care. So we also can't ignore or bypass the value of our individual work, though. So self-liberation, simply put, is about getting free from the things that keep us from being our whole selves. And I'll talk a little bit about what I mean when I say whole selves in a little while. So just like individual embodied healing contributes to collective healing, Our self-liberation work contributes to collective liberation. Now, let's talk about the definition of collective liberation. When I was looking this up, because it's one of those terms that we can all assume we know what it means, but it's important to find the actual definitions of things sometimes. And so at peopleandplanet.org, it says collective liberation means recognizing that all of our struggles are intimately connected and that we must work together to create the kind of world we know is possible. And I love this. They also included, we believe that every person is worthy of dignity and respect, and that within systems of oppression, everyone suffers. And I just want to co sign on that. I vehemently, big time agree with that. And in their collective liberation guide at peopleandplanet.org, which we will link to in the show notes, they walk through the intersectionality of liberation. So they list out gender binary and transphobia, patriarchy, race, social class, disability, sexuality, and religion. These are all the different things that intersect. These are all the ways that our suffering and therefore also our liberation are bound up together. And I also want to make a note here that the term intersectional or intersectionality was originally coined by Kimberly Crenshaw. It's evolved over the 30 years since. And there's a great article from time.com, which I will also link up in the show notes. This is episode number 350. So show notes will be at untameyourself.com/350. And in this article, Kimberly Crenshaw talks about the evolution of that term, intersectionality. And so for anyone who's not familiar with the term, here's just a summary she gave in the beginning of that interview. So in her words, she said, "These days, I start with describing what it's not, because there's been distortion. It's not identity politics on steroids. It's not a mechanism to turn white men into the new pariahs. It's basically a lens, a prism for seeing the way in which various forms of inequality often operate together and exacerbate each other. We tend to talk about race inequality as separate from inequality based on gender, class, sexuality, or immigrant status. What's often missing is how some people are subject to all of these, and the experience is not just the sum of its part." So I begin this episode with these definitions and attributions to create context for some of what I'll be digging into for the rest of the episode, as well as to be mindful that anyone creating their own body of work these days is never really inventing anything brand new. We might be synthesizing existing things or taking a fresh take or expanding upon something that already exists, but it's super important to acknowledge any and all roots, anchors, and starting points that we're aware of. Because listen, sometimes we're not. I know over the years, there's been a lot of things that have just come to me only later for me to realize that something similar or almost exactly like it already exists, which is one of the reasons why I also really geek out on collective intelligence. Because how could there not be this collective field of ideas and intelligence if, like, numerous people all over the world who don't even know each other and aren't even connected can be speaking about, writing about, developing, forming, creating very, very similar things. I really believe that these ideas, Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this in Big Magic a little bit, that these ideas really, like, they want to come into the world and they need hosts. And some of these ideas need more than one host. And that's how they get into the world and that's how they get going. So we can geek on that. We can geek out on that more on another day. But let me get back to the topic at hand, embodied healing and self-liberation. I did not always call my work these things. Those are names that came about over time that make the most sense now as the body of work has evolved and developed, kind of like how the name of this podcast continues to evolve. As an embodiment specialist, medicine woman, and spiritual guide, this is kind of the way everything works in my world, ever evolving and ever expanding, always rooted in love and greater good, with a larger purpose of contributing to collective healing and liberation, which does start with us as individuals, but cannot solely be focused on or about us as individuals. So we don't do navel gazing around here, you know? Each one of us, so let's get back to wholeness, which I mentioned earlier. Each one of us is made of so many parts. We all have natural gifts, skills, talents, and abilities. We all also have traumas and things that we've acquired, things from our past, things that are impacting us currently even. Many people also have goals, dreams, ideas, and beliefs about the future. We all have different hopes. We all have different things that we're grieving. We all have different desires. And we all do share a common purpose, which is to be the fullest expression of our souls through our human experience. And some of you know that one of the things that I do in my one on one work, which I'm actually taking a break from right now, is Akashic Records readings. And the Akashic field is the field that connects our soul with our source. It contains all potential and possibility. It's governed by unconditional love and light, like real deal love and light, like we talked about in last week's episode, number 349. And in the Akashic field, when people come to me for Akashic Records readings, which all of us, all of our souls have their own records. When people come to me for that, often they want to know, what's my purpose? And so, one of the reasons why I say our common purpose is to be the fullest expression of our souls through our human experience is because over and over and over and over again, no matter who comes to me for the reading, no matter who's asking the questions, everyone's Akashic records give some version of that answer. That's like the number one purpose we all have and we all share. We all also, of course, have individual purposes, missions, or promises, even. You can think of it that way if that resonates for you, that we made before coming into this life. And much of this life is then spent figuring out what those things are, committing, getting off track, recommitting, finding our way, and so on and so forth. That cycle of forgetting and remembering and committing and getting off track and then getting back on track and then making progress, that just repeats over and over again. Over the course of our lives, which is truly the nature of the human experience, things happen that get between us and fulfilling all of those things, right? Developing all the raw gifts, skills, talents, and abilities, healing all the traumas, and letting go of the past. And if you're conscious and aware of this, which if you're listening to this podcast, you obviously are, even if you're not entirely sure how all of it works, because let's be honest, some of it is highly mysterious, esoteric, and inexplicable, even if it does kind of make sense too. But if you're here, you're probably committed on some level to healing, growing, and evolving past the things that hold you back or keep you from being that most fully expressed version of your soul through your human experience. So this doesn't mean that you have to be healing all the time, right? We all need breaks. Healing happens in layers over time. And it requires both integration and rest, as well as doing the work, which is a phrase we hear a lot of people applying to all different types of healing processes, especially when we're doing deeper inner healing, especially when it's around trauma. We need integration and rest. And this is something that really defines embodied healing, because embodied is about paying just as much attention to the body and our physical, visceral, felt sensations, emotional experiences, and the things that connect us to our intuition, which is how our soul communicates with us, which is what bridges us to God, the divine, the universe, source, whatever you call it, right? And so when we're healing in that deep embodied way, of course, we're going to need integration and rest, because that's big work. When we injure ourselves physically and we have to heal from that, or we get sick and we have to heal from that, we understand, because we can feel it and see it, that we need to rest, and that we're going to need to recover. And even the most stubborn of us, and I lump myself in there because I don't know about you all, I've injured many things over the course of my life. I grew up playing sports, and I had one major surgery my senior year of college. I had an inguinal hernia. And whenever I was hurt, and especially when I was healing from that surgery, of course, I had this expectation that I was just going to like jump up after a day or two and be totally fine. And that was absolutely not how it worked. And when it's a physical injury, even if we try to speed up the recovery time, we'll often learn the hard way. We can even set ourselves back or re-injure ourselves because our bodies aren't ready, despite our mind's willfulness to be ready, because we're all, let me not say we all, some of you might not be in this place. Some people are really just so hitched to their productivity, right? To doing. They have a very hard time resting, healing, or recovering, even when it's what's needed. And so I bring up that experience of physical healing because most people can relate to that in some way, shape, or form. And I want to relate it to when we're healing emotionally, energetically, and spiritually, it's much harder to see and sense the progress, although we often need it just as much, if not more, when it comes to rest and recovering from physical things. So, the bottom line is that healing and recovery go hand in hand and both require rest and integration, no matter what level they're happening on, physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. And all of this happens in stages and phases. So if you've been listening for a while, or you've been a student of mine for a while, or a client, or have taken a program or a workshop with me, you've probably heard me use the metaphor for healing of a spiral staircase before. And I use this metaphor because I'm always looking for reasons to remind anyone who will listen to me to be kind to yourself, to be gentle to yourself, to be loving, forgiving, and compassionate towards yourself, no matter what leg of the journey you're in and no matter what part of the process you're in. And often, what I see people do is when they bump back into something they thought they already healed, it can be very upsetting or frustrating. And people will often say things like, I thought I healed this already, or I thought I already dealt with this. Right. And I know some of you listening are probably like nodding your head, like, yes. Or maybe you're in that experience right now. But here's what happened: you did heal it. You did deal with it. You did face it. It was just a layer of it because, especially our biggest things that we are here to heal often have many, many, many layers that we have to peel back over time. And so, the beautiful reframe that I like to offer people is when it comes back around again, what it means is you're ready for like the next level or the next layer. Another metaphor I like to use this for anyone who grew up playing video games, I think of like a Super Mario world or like a Donkey Kong country where there were like all these different levels and then all these different worlds. So there might be like 13 levels in one world. And then when you beat that world, you move on to the next world. And where do you start again? At friggin' level 1. But now you're in world number 2, which is harder and more difficult, and where you need different weapons and different skills. And there might be different allies available to you. There also might be different enemies and dangers getting in your way. But because of all the journeying and experience you had in that first world and all those levels, you are ready to take on world number 2. And that's how our healing is, right? Whenever things come back around, we are ready. We are getting into the subcutaneous levels, that deeper peace, and we are stronger. We're more resilient. We're more capable. We're more able. We have the energy. Might not always feel that way, but I promise you it's true. And so the spiral staircase, to come back, you know me, I got to like jump around. I love my friggin' metaphors, but to come back to the spiral staircase, especially if you're not a video game person and you're like, Donkey Kong, Mario, what is she talking about? Um, we can all think about going up, traveling up a spiral staircase, right? And so if you bump into something a few flights up on that spiral staircase, you can now see it and deal with it and face it from literally and metaphorically a higher perspective with more experience under your belt. And you can handle it differently than you used to, which also allows you to see how far you've come, how much you've grown, and how much progress you've made. And listen, the layers don't always come with like big gaps in between. Sometimes they might happen pretty close together. So I also want to remind you that even the littlest bit of progress is valuable and worthwhile. And it's so important and it's so amazing and it's so worthy of celebrating as you go. So this is how we break free, right? And that's what liberation is. Liberation is getting free. It's freeing ourselves from anything that we want to be freed from. So this is how we break free. This is how we break patterns. This is how we break the harmful things we've inherited from our lineages. And by breaking free from these things, we continue to also make room for the brilliant and amazing things that we have in our lineage and that we have in our souls that we're meant to express and use here in our lifetimes. All of these things, our the gifts and the medicine of our ancestors, as well as the gifts and the medicine and the energy that our own soul carries into this life. These things are always ready to shine through more brightly, more clearly, and more intensely. And sometimes first we have to clear out all the other crap that blocks the way. So, I wanted to talk about something that relates to both of these things, embodied healing and self liberation, and that is brokenness. And what I'm going to share with you, I just want to be clear here, is my belief around brokenness that I've developed over years of doing healing work professionally. This is not a universal law or a universal truth. So if it doesn't resonate for you, as always, I invite you to ditch it. If it does, though, and you have felt broken at times in your life or believes that you are broken, I hope what I'm about to share with you can bring you some solace and maybe even a glimmer of liberation or catalyze some healing for you right now. So I know some people feel broken or think they are broken, but personally, I do not believe in human beings actually being broken because the soul doesn't break. Humans can falter big time and humans can feel deeply broken, but souls are an expression of the divine. I believe what humans experience as feeling broken is actually feeling separated from their souls. And I do believe that happens. Some humans can get very, very far away from who they really are at the soul level for many reasons. And I believe the pain, despair, drama, chaos, and challenges that occur when that's the case are what create these deep, intense feelings of brokenness that so many people experience. They're also what invite us back to the truth of our souls over and over again until we wake up and choose it, if or when we're able to see and understand those invitations for what they are, and as well when we have the capacity and resources to do so. So, all of that said, in the simplest of terms, self liberation is about liberating or freeing yourself from all the things that stand between you being the most full expression of your soul through your human experience. And there's a word, a Greek word for this, anthropos. It basically means being fully human and fully divine, both. And you may have heard that phrase before, or you may have heard these phrases, as above, so below, or on earth as it is in heaven. These things speak to life in general, but it's this way for people as well. We are meant to manifest our divinity in our lives here on earth. So, speaking of which, if you're listening in real time, my More Magic workshop, where I talked about manifesting in a spiritually responsible way, was just yesterday, was just on June 6th. So, the recording will be up, and you can get the recording at untameyourself.com/workshops if you're interested. I also highly recommend pairing that workshop with the Less Control workshop that I taught in May. And I would watch, if you're going to do both, I would watch the Less Control workshop first. In Wild Soul Movement, less control, more magic is our most popular mantra. It's been that most popular mantra since 2014, about 6 years now, and 7 years. My goodness, we're in 2021. Am I the only person, by the way, that kind of edited 2020 out of my points of reference? It's like I just like didn't count it, but it obviously counted a lot. So, less control, more magic being our most popular mantra ever is where the idea for these workshops came from, because for so many years, people wanted to go deeper into the learnings and lessons of that mantra. So that's what we finally did. Again, you could always grab our workshops at untameyourself.com/workshops, or you could join the Embodied Living Center, because all workshops are included for free for Embodied Living Center members. So I bring this up here. It's relevant here because as we do both of those things, release our need to control so much, which by the way is such an illusion anyway. There's so many things that we try to control that we can't even really control. And as we connect to our innate magic, also known as our true ability and responsibility to manifest our divinity through our human experience, we can create heaven on earth through that integrated soul expression. So, over the last 8 years, I've been developing a framework for self liberation, which I will share with you in a moment. And anyone who's ever done Wild Soul Movement with me in the virtual program, teacher training, the power program, or attended a Wild Soul Movement weekend workshop will be familiar with that. As well, if you have been listening to the podcast in 2017, 2018, or 2019, you might also be familiar with it because there's 8 tenets to my self liberation framework. And I took deep dives into them in the podcast in those years. They are surrender, release, trust, receptivity, wild dreaming, desire, love, and truth. Now, I'm a huge believer of having frameworks and reference points for healing, growth, and transformation. And these things serve as anchors for the process and experience of healing, growth, and transformation because they ground all of it. And grounding is a big part of embodiment. And remember, I'm about the embodied healing, the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, integrating all four, integrating all the parts of ourselves so we can be that whole, that full expression of our soul through our human experience. And there's so many amazing thought leaders and authors in the world. I'm thinking about beautiful writers, speakers, activists, and artists whose work inspire and catalyze healing. Yet they are not healing professionals. They can share their own experiences and their art, which is often highly relatable, often like hits you in a place and helps you have like epiphanies and revelations, but they can't actually facilitate you through the process to do something, to make something of that epiphany or that revelation, to actually do the deeper work, to integrate, to recover, to heal, to replenish, all these things, right? And it's important to note the difference. Experience matters and it's valid. But just because someone has done something themselves doesn't mean they understand how to guide you through it, doesn't mean that they're a reliable guide to take you through it. It also doesn't mean they have the capacity, skill, or desire to guide you through it. Some people are really meant to just write their books, give their TED Talks, make their Instagram posts, and that's their contribution. And it's beautiful and deep and far reaching in some cases. But that's just a layer, right? The inspiration, the revelations and the ahas. This is why I value healing professions and healing professionals so much. These are the people who know how to guide, and those with the highest integrity also do their own work. So they're in the trenches with you. Therefore, they especially know how to guide you out of the trenches. And healing is not a field in which do as I say, not as I do is a valid or responsible way to wield authority. So does this mean your healers have to be perfect? No. I actually wrote a post a couple months ago about how important it is not to put people like us on pedestals because it will only be a matter of time before you need to kick us off when we as well are having a moment where we need to do some healing or where we bump into something or when we're in a transition between who we used to be and who we are becoming. We go through that too. But I really do highly believe that any healer who is not engaged in their own work is out of integrity because no healer is perfect. No healer is fully evolved or fully enlightened. But in order to be effective, responsible, and congruent as they help you in your journeys, we absolutely need to be engaged in our own work. So back to self-liberation again. I originally created the framework by reverse engineering my own healing process. And then once I started applying it with hundreds of women through Wild Soul Movement, I started to see, discover, and peel back the deeper layers and nuances of individual people's experiences. I started to notice the patterns and the intricacies of people's experiences with different identities from different communities, with different lived experiences. And something all quality healers understand is that their personal experiences are not universal experiences. There's so many factors that impact how individuals will experience frameworks, processes, and facilitation on their own healing journeys, as well as factors that inform us which tools, practices, and modalities will be appropriate for which people. And this is why I love frameworks, because people can bring their individual experiences to them and work the framework in a way that suits them, right? So, meaning you might take my self liberation framework, surrender, release, trust, receptivity, wild dreaming, desire, love, truth, and work it differently than another person would, right? That's it, because there's 8 things. For many years, I guided people through it in that order. And then over the years, I realized people could just dip back into whichever piece of it they were currently needing any given moment. Some people would even deep dive. Some people would spend months at a time just working surrender or just working trust. Those tend to be the 2 hardest for people, by the way. And so I saw that it's a what's the word I'm looking for here? It is a fluid. That's the word I'm looking. I was going to say flexible, but it's a fluid framework. So that's why I call those tenets. It doesn't necessarily have to be approached in that order, but the 8, and I love that it's 8 and 8 is infinity, because it really is like I could put them on an infinity loop and you could just be traveling that infinity loop over and over again throughout the course of your life, peeling back layers, doing that spiral staircase thing right there on that infinity loop. So basically, I see frameworks as healing maps. And that's what the self liberation framework is. So when it comes to surrender, surrender is about getting out of your own way. We will also, by the way, link up in today's show notes, untameyourself.com/350, all the different episodes I've done over the years on any of these tenets. There's several. I know there's at least 5 or 6 because I was just searching the podcast page, which, by the way, let me go on a tangent for a hot second. If you are ever sitting there like, I wonder if Elizabeth has a podcast episode for this, just like the freaking app store on your phone, you can go to untameyourself.com/podcast and just scroll down right around the middle of the page. We have a search bar. You can search for anything you're looking for. And if we have a podcast episode for it, it will pop up on that page, which is amazing because with over 300 podcast episodes now, the likelihood that I have an episode for something that you're curious about is pretty high. And I love that. So surrender is about getting out of your own way. It's not about giving up. It's not about giving up, but it's about getting out of your own way. And then for those of you who do believe in, God, the universe, the divine, again, whatever it is that you call it, it's also about offering up your obstacles, your challenges, your struggles, the things that you hold on to, the things that you want to control that you can't, to the divine. It's about making room in your life for the divine to help you, right? Not trying to do everything yourself. Release is pretty self-explanatory. It's about letting go of whatever in your life no longer serves you. Trust. We, in my worlds, in the self-liberation framework, mostly focus on self-trust and trusting in the divine. And reason being, what I have found in my own experience and working with so many people through this framework over the years is that when you trust yourself more and when you trust in the divine more, trusting other people kind of falls into place. Then there's receptivity. And receptivity is about letting in all of the good that is meant for you in this life. Some like to think of this as being ready to receive your divine inheritance, all the things that are meant for you. There's a quote that I love. I don't know who said it originally. I say it all the time. What is for you cannot pass by you. And that's what receptivity is about. Receptivity is about being more receptive to all the things that are coming for you in the best, most glorious of ways. While dreaming is where we begin our manifesting in this framework. When we become adults, so many of us lose our childlike awe and wonder. I mean, some of us lose that in friggin' childhood. Some of us have to grow up too fast. Some of us are parentified children, and for all kinds of other reasons why we might lose that. But we're all born with that. childlike wonder and awe, these wild imaginations that can conceive of anything because they don't know limitation yet. So wild dreaming is about reinvigorating, reactivating, re-expanding our capacity to dream and imagine and connect with real possibility, like real potential, real possibility at like the soul level, because we're all limitless. But so many of us have so many limiting beliefs and have put so many limitations on ourselves and our lives, on what we think is possible. So while dreaming is about like cracking open that like blessed Pandora's box of everything that's possible and everything that we have potential to be, do, have, contribute to, co create in this life. And the next in the framework is desire. And when we talk about desire in my world, we talk about the desires of the soul. And we learn how to, through embodiment practices, discern between the desires of the soul and the desires of the ego. Because the desires of the ego are going to distract us and derail us from our true purposes and from our true path and from staying connected and living through and from our soul. But our soul desires, those deserve our highest, best love, energy, attention, time, and effort. And so that's what desire is about. And it's easy to get disconnected from our truest, most soul-filled desires. And then when it comes to love and truth, these two go hand in hand. There is no love without truth, and there is no truth without love. But love is about, really, one of the things that I like to say around this is really remembering, really rooting in and really anchoring into the remembering that you are love in a body, right? Your soul is love. God is love. The divine is love. That's what that is in its purest, most pristine, beautiful, amazing form. And so it's about reconnecting and returning and knowing and having faith that love is so potent and so powerful and so real and so healing, and really being able to see and perceive and practice and receive and be love in every area of your life to the best of your capacity and ability, right? And then truth, of course, is connecting to your soul's truth and honoring collective truth. And, universal truth, I find hard to come by during these modern times, but there are some universal truths. But really being able to anchor into the truth of your soul, which the reason why I focus and emphasize so much on the soul is because the soul is a pure source. Whereas, you'll hear people weaponize their truth. Well, that's my truth. Meanwhile, they're doing or saying something super fucked up and super oppressive. But since they're claiming it as their truth, they feel entitled, like they have a right to it. Let me tell you something. Nobody's soul truth that's rooted in their soul, that comes from God, is ever going to be harmful or oppressive to another. And that's just real. So that's just a little real brief overview of the self-liberation framework and those 8 tenets. And I share that with you because during the I Shine You Shine challenge, which we're in right now, which signups are open right now. It starts on June 11th. I will be focusing on 2 of those 8 tenets: release and desire. And the reason I chose those 2 for this particular challenge, we're going to be doing this challenge now every season. And so for this summer 2021 season, I chose release and desire to help you begin the recovery process from everything we've been through in the pandemic. And we may not be all the way through or out of the pandemic yet, but what I've put together in I Shine You Shine for this summer is some of my best embodied healing and self-liberating practices to help us start creating healing momentum to speed up, if possible, our transition out of the pandemic. Because to go full circle back to what we started this episode talking about, our individual efforts absolutely contribute to collective effort. collective healing and collective liberation. So we're going to spend 11 days in a healing container together doing our personal embodied healing and self-liberation work so we can have these ripples in our lives and in the world for collective healing and liberation. Because I mean, for real, after this friggin' pandemic, and again, still, it's not over, but we are certainly beginning to transition. Um, we need all hands on deck, y'all. So basically, we're going to be our own little wild soul transition team, creating some momentum to help us replenish, restore, reawaken, and reimagine ourselves after over a year in the friggin' pandemic. So if you're excited to join us, let me give you a little give you a little glimpse of how it's going to work. So we'll spend 11 days together in a special pop-up Mighty Network, which is an online community portal from June 11th to June 21st. I'm going to give you a wild soul movement practice. The mantra for that is going to be, I am reclaiming my shine. I'll give you an erotic body practice. The theme for that is going to be releasing the past. I'll give you a healing meditation. And the theme for that is reclaiming true love and light, which, by the way, when you sign up, you immediately get the healing meditation in your confirmation email. Everything else will happen throughout the course of the 11 days from June 11th to June 21st, because I wanted to give us an opportunity to gather live. And then everything will be recorded and you'll get the recording after as well. As well, we're going to do a summer solstice ceremony to help you connect with your soul's desires and cultivate the energy to manifest and sustain them. In the online Mighty Networks portal, we'll be sharing some thoughtful prompts and community posts to share and be witnessed if that's your jam. And by the way, if you want to be part of the experience and you're more of a lurker in groups, that's totally okay. I get it. I've been running groups for so many years now. I know a lot of people do their lurker thing, but are still impacted, and that's cool. And like I said, everything gets recorded. You'll have access to everything through Monday, June 21st. So you can move at your own pace and repeat whichever practices you like best. And I also mentioned in the beginning, there's a big giveaway. So there's so many anniversaries and celebrations in May and June in my business. So I launched Wild Soul Movement in May of 2014. In May of 2015, we launched the podcast. In May of 2017, we launched the Oracle deck. Was that everything in May? That was everything in May. And then in June last year of 2020, we officially launched the Embodied Living Center. So there's just so much to celebrate between May and June. So some of you know this about me because you've been around for years. I love celebrating things by giving away as many things as I possibly. It's like my Oprah moment. I get to just give stuff away. And I even have a prize wheel, which is really exciting. I got that last year when we launched the new website. I got a prize wheel. It was super fun. Some of you were probably there for that event. So we'll bust out the prize wheel again. And there's all different ways to win. So for those of you who joins the challenge on June 1st, like the first day you could join it, you got triple chances in the drawing, whether you knew it or not. Anyone who signs up before June 11th gets one chance in the drawing. If you refer a friend to the challenge, you earn double chances. If you join the Embodied Living Center, when we open doors for enrollment on June 14th, 1 week from today, you earn quadruple chances. If you share the challenge on social media with our hashtag IShineYouShine621 and tag me, you get double chances every time you share on social. And as well, for those who are like not social media sharers, but they feel safe and comfortable in our community portal, each time you share your experience with any of the practices in the Mighty Network space, you earn a chance in the drawing. So each time, like you could literally share just something about your experience once a day for 11 days and get 11 chances in the drawing. So, that's how you enter the giveaway. And then here are the prizes. So I'll be giving away 4 50-minute Akashic Records readings. And this is exciting because I'm currently on a break from new clients until the fall. So if you have never done a reading with me before, this is literally the only way to book one any sooner than like September or October 2021. So I'm giving away 4 of those. In 2022, I will be bringing back Wild Soul Weekend workshops. I'll also be doing other types of events throughout the course of the year. I also might do a retreat. I also might actually do a large event. I've never done a large event before, but I keep seeing an event with like 100 people. And so that might be happening next year. And so I'm going to be giving away 11 spots to Wild Soul workshops in 2022. Literally, it's just going to be like you have a free ticket to whatever event you want to come to that I run. Um, other than a retreat. A retreat would be different, but any like weekend workshops or a big live event, you'll be able to apply to that. We still have some Oracle decks, so I'll be giving away 4 Oracle decks. And for those of you in the Embodied Living Center, you know that we do sacred bodywork classes and we use these amazing yoga tune-up balls. So I'm giving away 2 sets of yoga tune-up balls, and I'm giving away one of my favorite yoga mats of all time, the Manduka yoga mat. Um, it's a super nice yoga mat. And I've been using those for like 8 years. So I'm going to give away a nice, fancy, beautiful yoga mat too. So those are all the giveaway prizes. I will be announcing the winners on Monday, June 21st during a community-wide 1-year anniversary celebration of the Embodied Living Center. And you don't have to attend that live to claim your prize. We will contact you afterwards via email, either way. But the giveaway is for people who are in the I Shine You Shine challenge only. So at the very least, join the damn challenge to enter the giveaway because there's so much cool stuff being given away. Again, if you want to join the challenge, you can go to untameyourself.com/I Shine You Shine -621. And I hope you enjoyed everything we talked about today. I hope you have a deeper understanding now of what I mean when I talk about embodied healing and self-liberation. I hope any of the points of reference, I hope any of the aspects of the framework or even just the conversation about how important it is to have a framework, I hope those things were useful for you as always. You are always welcome to email us at hello@untameyourself.com. Let us know what you thought about the podcast episode. Share it up on Instagram or social media, wherever you are. I always love hearing from you all, how you liked the episode, how things landed. And that's it. I'm so excited to gather with those who are joining for I Shine You Shine starting this Friday, June 11th, if you're listening in real time. And that's it, y'all. Thank you as always so much for being here. I am so happy the podcast is back. I missed it so much. And we'll see you later.